Well, Nancy, which are the preferred platforms and why?
I think the easiest and most preferred to use are the same. So definitely Facebook, because they can share pictures easily and they could be voyeurs as well as participators. Pinterest and Instagram, we talked about that tonight, and they're definitely the two largest. Because I think you don't actually have to create content, or you can just browse or you can use, but it's all driven around product and their life.
Cassandra, women are more active on Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest. What's the main attraction of these platforms?
I wouldn't confuse activity with being powerful on a platform. I think women are finding their voice in social media as in the rest of society, but a platform that's full of women isn't necessarily a place where women are powerful, and I think we have to remember all of the time the aphorism that if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And in Twitter, the audience is the product that's being sold to advertisers. So when women participate in social media, do what you want to do for fun, but if you're there to make a living or to promote your reputation, and tonight we've been discussing essentially professional applications, you need to think about not just where the consumers are or where the audience is, but where are your clients, where are your next employers, where are the powerful people hanging out, and often those are in different places.
Well, Joanne, men are more active when it comes to Reddit, Google Plus and LinkedIn. Are you noticing that trends are changing when it comes to platforms? The platforms targeting a specific gender?
I think if they are writing a death warrant for themselves. Any platform that sees itself as exclusive to one sex is going to find that those who are not included simply stay away. This has effectively been the reason why Manterest has been created, because of the fact that Pinterest was so overpopulated with women. I think the nature of social is that we talk amongst ourselves regardless of sex. So I think any organisation, any platform that decides to focus on a particular sex, unless it is for a health or particular social issue, is doing itself a disservice.
Could that create a problem for Pinterest down the track, though?
Well, I think that they're trying to get around that, shall we say, in every way that they can. It will be a problem only in terms of the fact that they have to consider their business model in a longer term sense. The reality is that women make 85% of purchasing decisions. So at the moment, their focus on women is to their advantage. But the issue is that they are not going to be able to access 50% of the population.
But I think also too, the market chose for it to be women. The marketplace of women using Pinterest chose for it to be women. And I also think the fact that it is pretty pictures being shared or pretty content being shared, the sites that men would be interested in still haven't caught up with creating the pretty content that we would share through Pinterest. So I think we're going to see a lot more of those, the car sites or the sports sites, creating content that people can share through Pinterest.
Well, Nancy, how significant is the gender divide? And what does it mean when it comes to influence online? Who's driving the debates and the conversations?
Do you know, I have to, even though our topic was women in social media, I think the influencers are men and women. And I think women who are influencers are influenced by the community as a whole. I think the consumer is a little bit more, women speak to women more and are influenced by women. If I wanted to, I gave the example of saying, great shoes, Joe, where did you buy them? And Joe would tell me where she bought them. I probably wouldn't say to a guy, great shirt, Spiro, I'd like to buy that shirt, where did you buy it? So I think it's just our natural behaviour. So we are influenced by people who consume the same. However, if I was buying something for my boyfriend or my husband, I would then ask an influencer. So I think it is exactly as Joe said, it's specific to the need and want at the time. But I think to ignore that social media is a natural, easy way for women to share information, it is a bit dangerous because it's just our natural behaviour online.
Well, Cassandra, we hear a lot about mummy bloggers at the moment. One writer recently said that if you're a male writer who blogs, then you're a social commentator. If you're a woman, you're a mummy blogger.
That's not quite right. I mean, you know, you're reminded of some of the great quotes, Stephen Fry calling a friend a gentleman actress. And it's always fun to poke fun at people for, you know, saying that there are writers and lady writers or there are plumbers and lady plumbers. But the mummy bloggers aren't every blogger. You know, there are bloggers who are chicks and bloggers who are blokes, and the mummy bloggers are specific to a niche that's about family and children and products associated with that. And they've actually done really smart work to set themselves up to aggregate their content, to monetize their reputation and their audience, and the number of agencies that are pushing work through those sites. The mummy bloggers aren't worried about people patronizing them. They're too busy counting the cash. I think we should be much more respectful of those women.
So are women more proactive in making money online through these forums?
But women have always been active in small business in this country. You look at the number of startups every year and they're predominantly women, and there's a lot of reasons for that. The obvious ones are around finding work that fits in with family, and mummy blogging is really just an extension of the very widespread phenomena of women starting their own businesses so they can manage their own time. And I think that their success is something that we need to think about and take seriously, rather than just writing off with a sort of, you don't have the right PC packaging for us to take you seriously.
And Joanne, what's your opinion on mummy bloggers and the whole phenomenon? And is that just exclusive to Australia?
Oh, no. Mummy bloggers are around the world. And in fact, mummy bloggers have become a force not just in purchasing, but in elections and in politics. They are a specific niche market that anyone can market to, whether it is social marketing, consumer-based marketing or political marketing. What is interesting is the perspective that if you're a woman, you're a mummy blogger. As someone who isn't a mum, and I am a blogger, I find that whole notion really rather limiting, to be perfectly honest, because it doesn't.
I am a mother, but I am not a mummy blogger. I blog about politics, and that's not to say it's different, better, whatever. I think the mummy bloggers have done a far better job of creating a business model than I have out of their blogs.
But I think they're also quite powerful within their own community. So I think they're their own best kept secret within that community because it came from that need. Don't you think? I think
it's really breaking out. I mean, if you look at the crossover now between the small business women's networks, and that's a huge sub-community within the business community of Australia, the crossover now between the women's support business networks and the online and mompreneurs and mummy bloggers networks, these women, I think, are getting really smart and really organised. And you're absolutely right that it's every woman who's a blogger isn't a lady blogger or a mummy blogger. These women they've self-branded. I mean, that's the other thing. It's not a patronising label applied by other people. They've cleverly self-branded to mark their territory so that companies like yours have to deal with them in the marketplace.
And politicians can deal with them on issues that are traditional political issues like family, healthcare, education, insurance. All these kinds of ongoing problems become the focus of the mummy bloggers because these are the people who are creating the next generation.
Well, Joanne, how big do you think social will be in the next federal election when it comes to, I guess, the G word, the gender word?
Well, I think social has been actually in the last several elections, and I think that every election I hear is this the Twitter election? It was the Twitter election in 2007. It doesn't really require a particular critical mass or a particular gender for people to adopt social media for it to become a political force. Where social media is important is in facilitating discussions. So far, a lot of the Ozpol discussions on Twitter, for instance, have been repeating what other people have said. And I find that quite disappointing personally. What I would like to see is that if gender is an area that we focus on for the next political election, is that we do so in a manner that allows the community to create the policy rather than necessarily the policy being spoken about in sound bites and then repeated ad infinitum on Twitter.
Well, Nancy, do you find it disappointing that effectively gender will be, like an issue that is discussed going into this election?
I really do. I think I would rather it be mums, dads, self-employed people, small businesses, large. I think I would rather be grouped into that group. But you can't, it seems to be that the way that people can consume the information and segment and I think it is a little bit power. Like, I really hate to say that, but it really is a way to say you belong in that box, or we'll have that discussion on that level rather than an ability level. I started Social Media Women 3 years ago with a friend of mine who had this vision, and she's no longer part of that, but we've now gone 3 years into it, and I was thinking, we're not going to need to be social media women. We're not going to need to be this group of people that meet every month, and, you know, men are welcome to join, to come, but they don't come and speak at the event. But sadly, it's still needed because women don't feel comfortable assimilating and being in that natural space. But I think if they choose to do that, that's one thing. If somebody imposed it on us and said only women will go to Social Media Women and men will come to Media 140, I think it's different. And I think that's the conversation that is had all the time. We're going to have the gender conversation. Why? I own my own business, or I'm an employee, or I'm a mum, or, you know, why are we having it? I think it's a moot point, and I think it's a way for people to create false content.
Cassandra, what do you think on it?
That's a great phrase, false content. I think you're right about that. There are people framing issues to suit their own purposes, and in the end, you know, we're all taxpayers and citizens. We need infrastructure. We're interested in education. We're interested in the economy and employment, and in a way, there's a whole bunch of issues which we're being told that we need to frame the election in, including gender, which really have nothing to do with how much tax I'm going to pay or whether there's going to be a new freeway in Sydney. And again, you know, around the social media, as you say, fracturing us into little communities who can be sold one message at a time. I don't think that sort of analysis, it smacks of people from traditional media putting their old tools to work when dealing with communities through social media. And I think you made the point earlier tonight, which is really fundamental, is you have to think about how to use aggregation as a way to listen and not just as a way to talk. If you use social media as one more broadcast technology, which, you know, your phrase tonight was absolutely right on, Twitter is not broadcast. If you're not listening, if you're not finding ways to aggregate sentiment back to yourself, then you're going to miss it.
Well, that leads me to the issue of privacy. Women are more likely to keep their details closely guarded. How important is that to women?
Yeah, I think it'll evolve, especially when people understand how unprivate their information is. I think right now we think setting a button that says privacy settings is enough, and it's not. It's really not. And I think as people really understand, and sites have to disclose more, we will become more evolved and make an informed decision. And I think then people will be more private with their information. For example, I don't put my real age, my real city, my real anything on Facebook. I put the real date of month of my birth because I want people to say happy birthday. But I don't put any other information because I don't want Facebook to have my information, and I don't want to be categorised in that way. And it's the same, you know, people still don't understand. The more you use Google search, Google will then show you what you've searched before based on your preferences, and, you know, that's how it all works. And I think we just don't understand it enough. We know what we want it to be, we just can't use the tools properly.
Well, Joanne, should women, and I guess anyone, be sort of concerned with how much data they're putting on the web?
Everyone should be concerned. Not everyone really is going to be as concerned as an older generation was. There was a great saying many, many years ago now that the issue of the information age is not privacy of information but equity of exposure. So it is about ensuring that everyone has access to the same opportunities to control their own information. Privacy is not about keeping information private either. Privacy is about controlling information held about yourself. Now, you say that you don't actually divulge any of your personal details. I divulge everything, but then I'm a geek, so I have all of these systems in place to stop both Facebook and Google getting my private data, and that's because I'm a geek. So there are different strategies that can be used, but it is all about controlling oneself in the wider communication space.
Well, Cassandra, a recent study in the US by the Pew Research Centre found that men are more likely to post something online that they'd later regret. Can you pinpoint why, and is that fair?
Look, In my younger, wilder days, went to many parties, and it was, generally speaking, after several beers, it was the men who couldn't find their pants and the men who were hanging their bombs out the windows and driving very fast and other things. The internet's just like life, you know. I mean, this is the thing. There's nothing new on the internet. There's only pictures of it and GIFs of it and things. And I think the fact is women have always had to protect their privacy and safety more, because it's just a fact of life that women are generally the more exposed to unsafe behaviours in unsafe situations. So it makes sense that online we should be more concerned about security, about people knowing where you live and where you work and what pubs you belong to and that sort of thing. So again, the internet, your computer's just another door or another window to your house. You got to make sure, when it's open, you got good locks, all of that stuff.
Well, Nancy, Cassandra and Joanne, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.